All right, good evening, listeners. Welcome to Motley Crude, episode number 36. I'm Kevin, and this evening with me, I've got a full house, starting with Andrew. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. And then with us, we've also got Ryan tonight. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So this evening we are obviously going to be talking about the new hotness that is the new Arcane journal that just came out, the War of Settra's Fury, and then the first episode that we're going to be recording on this one is going to be about the Renegade Crowns, so the not Border Princes Army of Infamy that just came out. Before we get to that, however, let's talk a little bit about what we've been doing over the last few weeks. Unfortunately, it's been a little while since we recorded, so just over the last little bit there, Ryan, what has your hobby been like?
What did I do? I don't know. I ripped apart my hobby room in order to renovate it, so I've mostly been like helping my wife paint and shaping foam into faux bricks that I've been spray painting and gluing to my wall and
Nice.
building a gaming table out of countertops and a standing desk frame and random crap like that. Um
Yeah.
And then buying and assembling the contents of the 0 to 100 hours starter set to play World War II commando raids.
Okay. All right. I
Yeah,
think your hobby room definitely counts as hobby related though, because like it's definitely activities to support the hobby. So I'm there
that's
for it.
fair.
And it looks great. It looks great. I didn't realize those were you'd hand carved foam into bricks. Like when I was looking at the pictures, I thought those are legitimate.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was an obscene amount of time with a hacksaw. Um,
I can imagine. Okay, Andrew, what happened in your hobby lately?
Uh, I finished all that stuff for the doubles event that we played in. So, um, my 1,000 points of Blood Herd,
Yeah,
mostly Minotaurs and kind of big Griblies. Now I'm working on a bunch of Dark Elf stuff for my S-bot list because I've made some
nice.
radical changes to my normal list. Also, it's a slightly bigger event. It's 2250 or 2200.
Yeah,
So I've had to paint a few more things. No new units, but just kind of like bumping up the sizes of some. So I need a couple more Witch Elves, a couple
okay,
more Dark Riders to make those units bigger. Oh, and I get some shades here. And I'm painting up. I'm finally finishing off that Cauldron of Blood I started a while ago.
nice.
Since I don't have one I can borrow for the event, so I kind of got to get that done. But unfortunately, I just bought a house and we have a month to move, and the NHL season started, so I'm working basically every day. So it's kind of I'm trying to juggle all three of these things to get done by the end of this month.
Yeah, a lot happening there for sure. Um, Yeah, so the first thing on my end is Andrew mentioned it. We played in a doubles tournament. You and I together there about what was it, like 10 days ago, maybe, or a little bit more than that. Anyways, close to 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, almost 2 weeks.
Andrew, yeah, Andrew brought out his Blood Herd for the first time, and then I brought out my Wolves of the Sea for the first time. So it was like a all monstrous infantry all the time type list, which was fun. And then we went 3-0 and came in second. So that was a good time. We played. What did we play? We played Vampire Council, I think, game one. Then it was Lizardmen and Ogres, and then it was Orcs and Goblins and like Nomadic Wa. Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a fun time. Like what? It was my first doubles events. Like what kind of stood out for you in that format?
Um, I think like it's more of like a fun scene. Like I know there's
Yeah.
people there like going to be super competitive. I don't know if we really were. Like we could have brought way
No.
harder lists if we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I think it's just like more fun because like you have someone you can confer with, or like what should we like if you're not sure of like what the play is, you have someone to talk with. Usually, a
Yeah.
lot of the people, you know, were trying out sort of different things because it was smaller size armies, 1,000 points. So like there was a lot of people who had armies that they had just either never fielded before, like in your case, or had made like purpose built for that event, or
Hmm.
just took weird combinations that maybe if it is a faction they play, they've never tried these things before, but because
Yeah.
they have that teammate who can cover some bases, let's pull out like some of the more wacky stuff or less optimal things and see how they perform. So I think that's cool. And just, yeah, I don't know, it's more of like a chill, fun vibe than like some of the more singles events we're used to running and playing in.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I found like just keeping track of what was happening in the game was got pretty hard because it's like there's two games going on with four people involved, and like you're trying to follow the sequence of your turns and stuff, but like two other guys are just doing their own thing on the other side of the board. So that was yeah, definitely harder to keep track of, but it was really enjoyable. I I just I really like the scenario, Andrew. The second one from the match play guide. I forget what its name is there, but where you have two out of your four players that start like face to face in the center of the board, and then the two other players show up as like reinforcements entirely behind their opponent. That was a pretty fucking wild match, but it was
It
for
was a
sure a
bit of
lot
a
of fun.
shit show. Yeah.
It was pretty wild. So yeah. Anyways, it was a really good time. So aside from that, I started my big Mordheim campaign our big Mordheim campaign that we've got here locally in Ottawa. So I played 2 games of that over the last little bit less than 2 weeks. So I took my Amazons out for both games and won both games into treasure hunters and like dwarf treasure hunters, and then witch hunters as like my two opponents. Um, yeah, and then I didn't do a ton of painting over the last 2 or 3 weeks though. So anyways, that part is whatever. But I did play some games. So that's that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the news. So Ryan, it's been a while. What is going on in the event scene locally? Like what events are coming up?
So the next key event locally is November 2nd at Red Dragon. We have just a bog standard tournament. Um, and of course, I believe it's full up now, but there is a Square Based open event in Toronto in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. And then after that, we've got, off the top of my head, I don't think we have too much after that. It's kind of a quiet part. Oh, and Ludo Utwe at
Yeah.
the end of November in on the Quebec side of the river here in Ottawa.
Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah, so a bit of a quieter stretch of the year, but that's fine because it got pretty wild in the summer there for sure. Okay, so yeah, and then otherwise in the news, we've had a few Warcom articles talking about the new Arcane Journal. However, it doesn't make much sense to go through them considering that we have the Arcane Journal, so it's all overtaken by events. So let's just forge right on to our main segment, which is the Renegade Crowns. So just to remind our listeners of how we normally do these, so the first thing that we'll do is we'll talk about army composition and then the rules of the Army of Infamy. Then secondly, we'll talk about like the new unit entries. In this case, that will include the Renegade Lords, I think they're called, which is like the princes and captains. Cell swords, their veteran versions, free blades, the same thing, outriders, and all the new artillery that is part of this Army of Infamy. And then normally we discuss items, lores of magic, etc. But GW decided not to include any with this Army of Infamy, so we'll be skipping that part. All right, let's move on to like our general thoughts about it and army composition. So I'm going to start with you, Ryan. Like, what are your thoughts overall on the Renegade Crowns? Like, do you think it's a thematic and fun list? Like, does it bring something new to the table? Does it open up new playstyles for the Empire? Like, or whatever else you're thinking, just like your general thoughts.
Yeah. So as a guy that only owns Bretonnian Exiles and Empire, this is
It's a
great
good day.
because
Yeah.
it just lets me smash stuff that I own together into kind of a cool mishmash of an army, and that was what attracted me to Bretonnian Exiles, like way back
Yeah.
when. And like you've heard about my Nuln army, that's smashing in as many mercenary options as possible with Imperial Dwarves and Imperial Ogres and Doom Seekers and stuff. So, the ability to open that up more and, maybe bring in a Bone Grinder Giant and, all of these kind of free form unit entries that we're going to talk about, I think is really cool.
Yeah.
The only thing I think that gets weird is it's like the same thing that everyone complains about, say, like Skaven,
Mm-hmm.
is it where you have to take X in order to take Y,
Ah, yeah.
is also exactly how this army works. So it's one of those, like, yes, this is better in terms of construction than Skaven because like you can take things and just not take benefits to them, but
Yeah.
it's still the same principle that we all didn't like in that other army. So
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
kind of my only gripe about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's more like incentivized rather than hard locked, but I get your point. It does
But like
force
I
you
guess
to.
what I'm getting at is like if I want to make like an all Marangelo army and
Yeah.
I give all my characters the Marangelo upgrade, my army only does like one weirdly specific thing and is kind of
Yes.
blocked from doing any of the other ones.
Yeah. It will be great at sitting on objectives.
Yeah, like, I'm gonna make my general a weapon skill 8 wandering duelist. Okay, why?
Also, he sucks. Yeah.
Well, don't forget his rule ends halfway through the sentence.
Yeah.
So,
I saw that bit
uh,
too. That was great. Yeah.
what do you guys think?
Okay. Yeah, Andrew, what are your thoughts overall on this one?
I like it. I guess my complaint is kind of the same as Ryan's, where it's like there's a lot of cool shit in here, but you're kind of depending on the path you go down with your characters, you're kind of shoehorned into one kind of way, unless you know make all your characters something different. But if you're trying to go for like a theme of like, like the duelists, for example, if you want them all to be that, you're kind of then shoehorned into picking what's there. I do like how they leave um the mercenary section open though for future updates too, because it says
Absolutely. Yeah.
any dogs of war from any arcane journal. So that means like as we get more books, you're just gonna get even more options in here. I think that's really cool, and I think it's gonna keep this army of infamy like relevant going forward, even if like right now it's maybe not the most competitive. I think there's a lot of cool shit in here to make like the army that you kind of have in your head of like, oh, what would like some weird mercenary company look like? You can do that with this list, and I think that's really awesome. And yeah, that Dogs of War thing I think is a really cool little tack on at the end there.
Yep. Yeah. No, I fully agree with both of you there. I personally, I really like this Army of Infamy. Like it speaks to me just the customizability, the ability to make that cool little weird exiled mercenary company living on the fringes that you sort of are able to dream up. Like all the tools are there to make it. I think there's a few pieces that are missing to make this like a slam dunk Army of Infamy. As for instance, Wolves of the Sea was early on in the game's release, like where having no items, having no and being super constrained in the items you can use. The absence of elite units. I know they do have like veteran cell swords and free blade knights, but those are not elite units. They're just like upgraded units as far as I'm concerned. There's no specific lore of magic, for instance. There's no mount options other than a warhorse or a barded warhorse. So there's just a few things I think that are missing to really create like a slam dunk of an army list. But overall, I really like the concept. I like what you could do with this. I love that it exists for people who just want to go crazy and hobby something something up that is really theirs, and dream up whatever little county in the border princes and come up with an army for it. I think absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I like that their units have so many options that they're basically just like a chassis, and then you bolt on whatever you want from it. And we'll talk about that later when we get to stuff like specifically the cell swords, especially, which stand out to me. There's some really cool stuff there. In terms of yeah, I guess my last thought there is like it feels like a different army almost altogether, rather than like an Empire Army of Infamy for me. Just because so many of the Empire units are not available. They're replaced by so many other random units. And then it also, like, in terms of the playstyle it opens, I think that it doesn't necessarily open up a brand radically new playstyle that the Empire couldn't do before, but it does certainly, in my mind anyways, elevate like a certain type of list. I think specifically based on infantry, like skew slash something trending into a bit more of a take all comers list. I think both those are very viable in this list, or anyways, as viable as they're going to get in the current game that we're playing. And one thing I will say is that like I think this army plays the missions exceptionally well. Because of some of those rules that we'll be covering in a second. So yeah, it's highly customizable. It's fun. It's thematic. Like I'm there for it. I just think there are a few sort of like the high end top third of this book just doesn't exist, which is sad. So okay, so let's move on to the next question. I can kick us off on this one, guys. So do we think that this Army of Infamy has competitive legs? Do you think you can make an optimized list out of it? Go win some events out with the Renegade Crowns. So I'm going to start. I think the Renegade Crowns has like one very specific and significant glaring weakness, and it is that it doesn't play well at all into monsters. Whether that's your ridden monsters or like dragons, that kind of stuff, or any other real monsters. And then you obviously don't have any monsters yourself to play, and then there's no real ability to do any hero hammer here, because like the characters that you have, I think, are more, as we'll talk about in the rules later, are like buff pieces, or anyways, they modify your army more than anything else. And then like no chariots, no significant mounts, all that kind of stuff. Like it just means that there's a really big hole in how you can construct your list, and there's going to be some really really tough matchups for this Army of Infamy if you do like intend to win with it. I think that it does, like I mentioned earlier, play missions exceptionally well, but it will struggle in offensive output. Like at the end of the day, you can sit on strategic points as much as you want, but like it's still a kill points based game, and you're probably not killing a ton of stuff with the Renegade Crowns as it is. Like you can get a Lord to strength 7, but yeah, I mean it's not like a Chaos Lord of strength 7. It's quite different. Sure, there's a pair of bombards which admittedly are extremely good and very good little pieces, and then after that it really falls off in terms of damage output. I mean, you can get there with like your veteran free blades, but there's issues with that. And then I guess you could also take like ogres with great weapons or something, but those are not some great options. So can you build at the end of the day, can you build a competitive list out of this? Yes. It's probably, I think, a 3-2 list at an event, which is totally fine, and I think is where more or just armies in general should land. But I don't really see an event winner coming out of this Army of Infamy. It's just not enough damage output. It doesn't really have any real hammers. And then there's just a ton of lists that are going to be borderline unwinnable for you. Anyways, so yeah, so those are my thoughts. Andrew, what are your thoughts about this on the competitive side?
Yeah, I think you nailed most of it. Like the way I see this, I think it's sitting very snugly with, Empire in terms of competitiveness. Like
Hmm.
sure, maybe you can skew a little better with Empire and get maybe a couple more wins. Like you said, you can they do have some monsters. They do have like Monsters Cav and some more heavy
Yeah,
hitting things. But they can also do like, Ryan's known like gun spam list where you can pull out
yeah,
a shit ton of cannons and then you do have like a pretty serious threat for monsters.
yeah,
But at the same time I still think it's kind of sitting at that same power level. And again, I think like the Dogs of War aspect of this army is where you're gonna kind of see maybe it trying to plug some of the holes. Like I don't think we've ever really seriously had a look at the Bone Grinder Giant, but maybe that's something that can work given the things that are actually going to be around that giant as well in this list. Um, yeah, so I'd need to go back and like look at some of the Dogs of War options. Ogres are always a good choice. Um, if you're lacking for monstrous infantry, but they're also not like super strong. So you kind
no,
of gotta, I think you gotta see what's there. Yeah,
yeah,
that's kind of my thought on it.
agreed, agreed. Ryan,
Yeah, you guys hit most of it already. Like, really, it's definitely more of a hobby army. Um,
yeah,
it's I as we were just talking before, I think it's a bit of a trap on the like there's so many options that if you try to actually make use of them, you're making things that cost more than the
they're worth.
equivalent
Yeah,
unit in the Empire or Bretonian army. Um,
agreed.
and then you don't have access to all those other enablers. Also, just for the record, my Nuln army has no more cannons in it than this army can have.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
think
All
it
right,
means null in general. Yeah,
yeah, yes, not
calm down,
my
Ryan.
Nuln army.
yeah,
All right,
sure, sure.
Frank's
And
Null Army. Okay,
yes,
is that
yes,
better?
Frank's Nuln army, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But
then,
I think, but like that's an interesting point. Like I think Null is a very much a counter meta pick right now, and it can
yeah,
do well like in regular Empire. Yeah,
but yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is like the army is inefficient to build, like in terms of like to get all the things that you want, and we'll go through this later. But you'll immediately hear about a Mirangelo phalanx with a Griffin banner. Like that's two characters, each with a 25-point upgrade, each with like random crap, all to enable one unit of infantry to be not significantly better than the same amount just spent on a unit of state troops.
yeah.
Um, and, you know, but it's really cool that I can have a phalanx of dudes in full plate with spears because that's just awesome. Or I
Yeah.
can, use my 20 Nuln Ironsides as detachments and have actual guys in heavy armor with handguns, which is currently something that has no rules. So,
Hmm.
like, to me, that's where the value comes in. But yeah, you're absolutely right. In the competitive space, it's a show up and you're not going to lose every game, but you're probably not going to win a 5-round tournament type army.
No, yeah, agreed. And if somebody wins a 5 round tournament with this, I will be impressed, and I'll sit on like on the air. It'll be a good day. Yeah. Um, yeah, no, and then that one thing you did say, Ryan, like I agree with you. Like it's fully like this is more of a hobbyist's army, 100%. And if like me, you're waiting for Dogs of War to come back, or the Southern Realms, or Talea, or whatever they end up getting called, like this is the perfect opportunity to just start painting some stuff into that army and just start chipping away at it for when it comes out. You know that there's going to be pikemen in some shape or form. You know that there's going to be those phalanxes popping up again. So like yeah, definitely like you could get a head start going. um Okay. let's move on then. Ryan, army composition, and what do you like? You want to go through the army composition list and then just give us your comments and your thoughts.
Absolutely. So, army composition list. Now, interestingly enough, despite this being Empire themed, this is an army of infamy not connected to any other grand army. Just for
Yeah. Okay.
so characters, 50% can be spent on characters, 0 to 1 renegade prince per 1,000 points. And then you can take any number of renegade captains or outcast wizards, the outcast wizard being from the Bretonian Arcane Journal. Core, 25%, a minimum 25%. You can take 0 to 1 unit of veteran sellswords per 1,000 points, much like state troops. And then you can take any number of sellsword infantry, freeblade knights, and hireling outriders, as well as free company militia and empire archers from the empire list.
Mhm.
You can spend 33% of your army on special, which includes veteran freeblade knights and 0 to 2 border prince mortars per 1,000 points. So you can have 4 mortars. 1,000-point army.
Let's
So many
go.
mortars. Rare, up to 25% of your army can be spent on Border Prince's Brigands, also taken from the Bretonian Arcane Journal, and
Okay.
0 to 1 War Machine per 1,000 points of the following list: Border Prince's Organ Gun and the Border Prince's Bombard from the Bretonian Journal. You can spend 33% of your army's points value on any unit that has Dogs of War in quotes in its unit entry. So there's a bit of future proofing there, which is nice.
Yeah.
And that those mercenary units are subject to misbehaving mercenaries. So just to cover off for everyone, a very quick list. The only things that have that rule right now are the Bone Grinder Giant, Badland Ogres, Imperial Dwarves, and Doomseekers. So,
Ooh, I forgot Imperial Dwarves. Nice.
yeah. And then a single renegade captain in your army can be your BSB for 25 points. And there's a caveat here that magic items, any models that have the option to purchase magic items can purchase common magic items. Just because it's been said in other places, I would read that as overruling the more general FAQ about people getting magic items from the place that their unit entry is drawn from.
Really?
Uh,
Okay.
ma-
Yeah.
Mainly because you would wind up with a situation where outcast wizards, with the way this army works, would natively have access to the Bretonian magic items and then could be given a 25-point upgrade that gives them access to also the entire Empire suite of magic items. And like nothing
Mhm.
else in the game allows that to exist.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. And you'd have stuff like Border Prince's Brigands being able to take Bretonian magic items for some reason. But that's my take on that. And also, otherwise, why would this text be here when it doesn't exist in any other army list? But so
Sure.
overall,
Sure. Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about it as much as you did. I just thought, okay, all the army takes it from, and then that FAQ where obviously the one you're referring to where it says you take from your home army book, and when there's the
yeah,
renegades, sorry, the outcast wizard, it says from Bretonia, but I could see it both ways. I don't mind too much. I don't think you're gonna break any local metas by having your outcast wizard pick out of 2 item lists. But yeah.
no, no.
Okay.
Anyway, but as to overall composition, like it's basically the best mashup of slot choicing of Bretonian exiles and Empire Grand Army. So
Mhm.
like you can have your core be all cavalry, all light cavalry, all infantry, any combination of all of those things.
All
Um
skirmishers.
yes, all Empire archers
Yes.
and hireling outriders or
Yes.
whatever. You can take quite a few characters, especially because they're pretty cheap before you start giving them stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you can get your quasi mandatory 2 Border Princes bombards. And then again, the cool, like, I love 33% mercenaries. I think that's cool. That lets you, that's 666 points. You can slam in a 300-point giant in, like, I know giants are terrible, but like, it's got 8 wounds and toughness 6, and it looks cool.
Let me tell you, it is a poor choice for a monster, but it fits a role that this army desperately needs. So
Yeah, like, you slam a giant in there, some ogres with light cannons, a couple doom seekers. You've got yourself a little mercenary party going on. Now, however, these mercenaries are subject to misbehaving mercenaries, which is not a problem 99% of the time, but
yeah,
it can be. But no, like, it's a stripped down version of Empire Grand Army that can just take all of the essentials. Is really what it is.
sure. Yeah.
Um, and I dig that. It's here for flexibility. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a pretty decent army composition list. Like just going down like top to bottom here. I think there's something missing in the characters is sort of in the characters slot. Like I like the renegade princes and captains and outcast wizards. That's all fine. I think that this army will be for its damage output or sorry, what we'll find that those border princes bombards are a bit of a crutch. So not having, for instance, an engineer role in there is hurts a little bit. And maybe a priest would have been cool too, like some variety of priest. For this army would have been a like another cool little inclusion. Or maybe some mercenary. I know they're all technically mercenary themed, but something to remove mercenary, misbehaving mercenaries or whatever. Like just a little bit more. But
Right.
overall, I think yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I do have a thing I forgot that kind of
Yeah,
dovetails with that is reading through the rest of the book. Like, they talk about Cecil Gaston a lot
yeah,
being involved with this kind of army, and you kind of get the same threads with Hans. And I think maybe one of the missed opportunities was letting you take Cecil or Hans in
yeah.
this army, which would have addressed your last point
Agreed.
about
hundred
turning
percent.
off behaving mercenaries. But anyway, that's all.
Yep. Yeah, agree. Fully agreed. Yeah, because Cecile Gaston is super fucking mentioned all over this book's lore. Anyways, cool. So moving on, like into core, I think this is a very very good core list and amount of choices here. Like veteran cell swords are fine. The cell swords I really really like because they're so customizable. The free blade knights are fine. The hireling outriders are I think a unit you could do a lot with also. And then Empire Archers for just being that little speed bump annoying unit. I think we'll see a lot of play. So overall, I think that they have a very very good core list. And as Ryan was pointing out, you can do everything with decent to good options. You can do light infantry, you could do heavy infantry, you can do skirmishing infantry and shooting, skirmishing cavalry, like heavy cavalry. Options galore here, and they are generally well priced, which we'll talk about later. And then in special, like special sort of um, lets me down a little bit. Like I'm not a big fan of the mortars. They're not great, and we'll talk about those later. But just having so you're basically only left with veteran free blades in special. Think of it as if you only had inner circle knights and nothing else in your special slot. Like that to me is like there's something missing here. There's like there were options to do something cool with this. I don't know, like a renegade prince's household guard or something, like whatever. Like there's a million things you can come up with, but it feels a little bit bare bones to me. So, anyways, and then going on to rare, like I think the biggest limitation and the thing that really will bring down the competitive level of this book is having that limitation of 0 to 1 war machines from the following list. Like the Border Princess Bombards are going to be such an important part of this list if you want to do something competitively. Being limited to 2 is pretty brutal. They don't like it doesn't need to be Null 2.0 and have 6 cannons or whatever, and then 2 organ guns and what have you. But at least I think going 0 to 2 per thousand would at least give the Army of Infamy some teeth with which to bite back against like some of the big nasties in the meta. So yeah. Anyways, and then as you guys have pointed out, the mercenaries stuff is really cool and positive. Like I hadn't even considered Imperial Dwarves. I'm not sure they'll really find a place in this army, but they're cool for hobby purposes. I think you just because you're so short on options, you may veer a little bit towards the ogres in one of their 2 varieties. Just because having strength 6 with great weapons on either of them is just like a good solid option for this army. So yeah, so those are my thoughts in general. Andrew, what are your thoughts on army composition?
Yeah, I think like a lot of my stuff echoes yours. You know, you do have access to a lot of good tools here, but at the same time, like your best tools are very limited in terms of like your war machines. Um, and I think a lot of players, maybe not at first if they're like coming over from Bretonia or Empire to try this list out, but I think over time, a lot of people are going to be trying to dip into that mercenary slot a lot deeper to try to plug some of the holes or fix some of the, I guess, the issues that this list might have. And hopefully, in the future we'll get better options to go in there as well. That will really sort of bump this armory up. But like, yeah, like right now, you have like a good base, but it just needs that like a little bit of something to help punch it up.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Okay. So let's start. Let's talk about the only special rule in this Army of Infamy, and that is the origins of the infamous. So basically, the way that this works is you each of your characters can purchase an infamous origin, and then that will unlock some of these rules here. There's 4 different flavors of them. Basically, your characters can come from Tilea essentially with the mercenary hosts. They could be Bretonian with the outcast knights, um, outlaws and renegades, which is just like general outlaws type stuff. Maybe Empire. Anyways,
Yeah,
and then it's Empire, and then wandering duelists, which is Estalia type theme, I think. So there's some cool options here. So and basically the just a quick gripe about the layout. So the way that this works is you have to like it's the first page in the Army of Infamy, and then you got to scroll to the last page, which is how you buy these upgrades for your characters. And they range from 25 to 20 points, just to sort of give you access essentially to what is the marquee ability of this Army of Infamy. So that one is, layout's a bit annoying, and the fact that you have to pay to get access to your own rules is a little bit annoying, and I think unnecessary because of some of the other issues that we've talked about already in this army. But I will say, like overall, I am there for it. Like it's a super customizable system. I like the RPG-esque type rule that it brings to the table of like, I want this guy to be Bretonian exile, and then he gets all those special rules as a result. Like, and his troops get special rules as a result. So, and I think also the effects are pretty substantial. They are some good upgrades. And as I mentioned, like I wish you didn't have to pay for them. I think like I don't know the list that you've built, Ryan, but when I've been looking at it, it's like a 75 to 100 point just like tax for you to access your core mechanic on the army. So
Yeah,
I know, yeah, I know it's in line with things like nightly orders, but still, like nightly orders are not taken in great amounts, partially because of this reason. Before we dive into those 4 different like flavors of Renegade Crownsman, Andrew, what do you think of like how the overall like infamous origin system works?
I really like it. I wish there was like, maybe like 1 or 2 more options.
Yeah,
Like I
like
really like,
Kislev or yeah.
yeah, like Kislev, or like even some of those weird ones we saw in the rumors, like, oh, is like possible vampire with like shit like that.
Yeah.
Because I think we talked about this in the High Elf Arcane Journal review, like mechanics like this where you can take your character and then customize like how he performs on the battle to be exactly like sort of your vision of what you want that character to be. I love mechanics like this. So I think
Yeah.
this is a really cool system. It's just I wish there was maybe like one or two more options just to get a little bit different play styles out of all these guys.
Sure. Yeah. Halflings for sure. Yeah. Ryan.
Halflings, yeah, halfling
Yeah.
leader, that'd be hilarious.
That'd be amazing. Okay, Ryan, what are your thoughts on the system overall?
Yeah, you guys covered it. Like the tax nature of it is a little bit clunky, um, as opposed to just making it a like, you know, my guy's a wandering duelist and he gets whatever, and just maybe
Yeah.
making the characters cost a little bit more inherently, as like to average
Sure.
it out maybe. But I like what they bring with the level of customization. I think the only downside is because they're so niche to specific units, I can't help but wind up looking at the army like it's gonna wind up being like a hockey sock. Like, like if the theme here is, you know, you have your Mirangelo phalanx and then your outcast knights and your, highwaymen, outriders. It's less of a, you know, we are a petty kingdom, you know, taking up space in the old world Balkans, um, from a particular origin, and more just like someone has smashed together thing like.
Whoever they could find, yeah.
But you know what I mean, like, and I understand, like, there's only so many ways to make army mechanics work, but I think back to Horus Heresy 2.0's militia,
Yeah.
and how it worked, where like you just kind of had like a weird smorgasbord of traits that you could assign to the army and to the characters and kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, like I like the final output, but thematically I find it a little bit ham-fisted, the way
Sure.
it works out.
Yeah, because I don't think you will get like by far the best version of this Army of Infamy is when you mix and match to get different sort of tools brought to the table. I think if you're like I am making a Chilean themed force off of Miragliano or whatever, there like you like that will not that will not be great. Like yeah. So you're right. It tends like the narrative conceit here is way more some local warlord has clobbered together a coalition of random units from different portions of the old world rather than this is a little border kingdom or princedom of Bretonnian exiles, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to what they actually do. So I can kick off with the first one here. The first one is so this just guys, when we're going through them there, you'll need to bounce back and forth in the army book. But so the first one is the mercenary hosts. And this is the one that is Chilean themed or Miragliano themed, which is a state in Tilea. So basically, the mercenary hosts for each character in your army that has the might of Miragliano infamous origin, you can have 0 to 1 units of sellsword infantry or veteran sellsword infantry that change their troop type to heavy infantry, and then they receive the phalanx. They may receive the phalanx rule for an additional 10 points per unit. And then there's a lot of text for how phalanx works, but just to sum it up for everybody, phalanx essentially, what it lets you do is place a unit in what would normally be marching order, a marching column, pardon me, but it still counts as being in fighting order as long as you have enough models wide to claim a rank bonus. So because you will presumably pick the same unit and make them heavy infantry there, that will be 4 models wide. So as long as you're 4 models wide, you could be 20 deep if you want. It's a bit excessive, but like let's say you're 10 deep, you will still count as being in fighting order. And then with your that will overlay with the effects of like heavy infantry, right, which limits how you could be disrupted on the if you're charging the flanks or rear, that kind of stuff. And then there is a restriction additionally. So a phalanx, like you can't do the triple move march, forced march thing with it, unless your phalanx is less wide than the minimum number of models you need to get a rank bonus. So usually that's going to be 4. So unless your phalanx is 2 or 3 wide, it cannot do the force march in marching column type deal. Then you have to pair that up, because to access those rules that I just mentioned, you have to pair it up with an upgrade, which is an infamous origin for your character. So the upgrade is called the Might of Miragliano, and that's a 25-point upgrade. That one basically give your mercenary captain or whatever general, whatever there's, I forget the name right now there, or your outcast wizard, is it will give them +1 modifier to their leadership characteristic, which is really good. And then it will give them the stubborn rule as well as Chilean stoicism. Chilean stoicism is a special rule, obviously, and basically what that means is, what that gives you is a character can essentially spread stubborn to their unit as long as they join it before it's taken the first break test of the game. So essentially spreading stubborn +1 leadership. So I think this is a very, very good rule overall. Like the whole mercenary host from like the Might of Miragliano and then the character upgrade that goes with it, like those are very good. I think this is the strongest one out of the 4 competitively in terms of what it does for your unit, because turns, let's say, average infantry, although they're pretty well priced, but it takes average infantry and it makes them very, very, very good at playing the mission, and it makes this faction, this Army of Infamy, like champs at playing the mission. We'll see it later. It'll become very clear when we talk about the characters, but all your commander types have the warband rule, so you can slam them in a unit of really like a huge unit of cheap troops, and then you can bring them up to leadership 10 or 9, make them stubborn, have them keep their rank bonus for longer because they're in phalanx, and then they get to ignore first charge also as part of this rule, which I omitted to list out earlier. So all that together, I think this is a very strong set of rules, and it's basically an auto include for how the game is played right now. Having these guys, 40, 30, whatever amount of them you want, with all these rules laid on is going to be pretty tough to shift, especially it can get trappy, as Ryan mentioned earlier, but you can also pump up their armor value pretty significantly and get to something respectable. Last little gamey thought here is that the way I'm reading this, your Renegade Lord could spread stubborn to multiple units as long as he enters them before they fail they lose their first combat and have to take a break test. So you could have one guy spread stubborn to multiple units in that way. Although that is obviously a very corner case that is unlikely to happen very often. Ryan, what do you think of this first one? Yeah.
If you read the last sentence, if he leaves the unit, they lose stubborn.
No, but you would go into the unit that's about to lose combat, leave it after, and enter another unit. They'd lose it, but they'd already have used it up. Yeah.
Yeah, so
but
basically any unit he's in would get stubborn as long as he hasn't burned stubborn. Yeah, that's not horrible.
It's just a fun little gamey thing. It's unlikely to be relevant in a game. So Ryan, what do you think of this overall?
Like, I like that ability. I like the idea of the phalanx. It can do some, it makes a nice tanky unit stick around a little longer, as we'll get into in a bit. Like, the dream unit here involves paying this tax, a 35-point tax, right? 25 points on the character and 10 points on the unit, and then also paying 25 points on a different character so that they can take Empire magic items and bring the Griffin banner. So it's, these things can get expensive very, very fast to not be like so
That good,
significantly
yeah.
better than state troops as to be worth doing. Um,
Yeah.
but it's cool that you can do it, which is like that's the thing I like, is like you just do something different. It's gonna look different, it's gonna maneuver differently, uh,
Yeah.
play a little differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And then yeah.
and also like the character conferring the benefit of a 50-point magic banner is great.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And we'll talk about it when we get back, when we talk about the cell swords specifically and the veteran cell swords, Ryan, but like you're correct that I think there's a massive trap in here where you just end up paying, hand over fist points for like basically upgraded state troops. So
For
you
really
got to be,
bad chaos warriors.
yeah, you got to be very careful. But if you keep them nice and cheap, I think you can do something really good with them.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrew, what do you think of this first one?
Yeah, I think you guys like mostly cover it. Like just being able to give sort of a stubborn out inherently is pretty good. Plus, making those usual empire leaders and stuff, like bumping them up to leadership 9
Yeah,
or even 10 in some cases is just solid. You want that in your characters. I guess leadership 9 with the renegade lords. That's a good break point for doing leadership tests just in general, especially with like inspiring presence and stuff. Um, so that just makes, you know, human leadership that much better because they're not the greatest.
yeah.
Oftentimes,
That's it.
leadership, like,
That's what their leadership is in Empire.
No,
is it
but you can go
really?
to 10. No, you can go to 10 in this one, right? Because he's like the Lord is a 7, you bring him up to an 8 with because there's a +1 modifier in the rule, and then you
Yeah.
get +2 from Warband. So
And an Empire general is leadership 10.
oh well,
That's right.
okay.
They just
And an
changed
Empire
it.
captain, that's what I'm saying, is like the
Oh,
leadership
because they
winds
just
up being
changed it.
exactly the same. But without the
Well,
characters, the unit's leadership is shit.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
it's
But
pretty
like, yeah, but you know what? You get stubborn. You get like the phalanx rule is good. Like ignoring first charge on that big brig of infantry is a big deal. Like there's other stuff here.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just saying there's no difference in leadership.
Fair. Okay. Yeah, that's it. That's fair enough because they did modify it in the last FAQ. Okay. So, and then the next one, Ryan, the Bretonian themed one, I left Renegade Knight. Yeah.
Yes. So, Outcast Knights for each character in your army that has the Renegade Knight Infamous Origin. 0 to 1 unit of Freeblade Knights or veteran Freeblade Knights can have Lance Formation and Noble Disdain for +2 points for model. Renegade Knights is a 25-point upgrade for one of your characters, and they get +1 weapon skill and strength. Can purchase magic items from the Bretonian Forces of Fantasy and Arcane Journal Kingdom Bretonia, and gain Noble Disdain and Veteran. Noble Disdain, a model with the special rule whose troop type is cavalry, doesn't have to make panic tests when friendly unit whose troop type is infantry is destroyed whilst within 6 inches of it, or when it's fled through by a friendly infantry unit. So it's basically like a souped up version of the whole, like,
Peasants. Yeah.
it's basically like all of your infantry are levies relative to the cavalry unit. Be the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah.
2 points a model for not panicking from infantry dying near you and getting lance formation is like, again, we'll go through the math when we go through the cavalry units, but like it's probably not worth it. Like
Mhm.
I like lance formation a lot, but it has a lot of downsides with how the rules work now. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure that I would pay 2 points a model to wind up being more expensive than Bretonian Knights just to have lance formation and Like my
Yeah.
infantry unit's not dying before the cavalry is, and if it does, I've lost the game. I would not pay for this upgrade. Although I would
Okay.
pay for +1 weapon skill and strength. So,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
and
say.
access to Bretonian magic items. But I don't think I would
Yeah.
shell out to actually upgrade a unit of cavalry with this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm a little bit closer to the fence, I guess, but I think I agree with your assessment overall there. I think lance formation is cool in that like it's maybe marginally better than like close order, but not by a ton. It's if anything, it just looks better on the board, so there's that going for it. But like veteran is a good rule to have in your back pocket. Noble Disdain is meh. I don't really care for it too much. But like you, Ryan, I think the real juice here is +1 strength and +1 weapon skill, as well as Bretonian items on your lord. Makes me very very sad is that it doesn't give you access to vows because you would love to get the monster slaying vow in this army. Fortunately, you can't. So there's that. But at least you get access to some really good items. Bretonia has some good items in it. I think this is your general of your army should probably be of this. If you want to be as strictly competitive as possible, your general should be of this variety to have a little bit of a beat stick going. Because with a great weapon or a lance, you can bring them up to strength 7 because they're naturally strength 4. And strength 7 now you're starting to talk. It's still a very squishy platform, unfortunately, but nonetheless, like at least you start to get a little bit of more of an ability to actually wound things. It is three wounds or whatever, but like yeah. So overall, it's a decent it's a decent one. I think on your general, as we just mentioned, I'm not convinced as you are, Ryan, about the value point for point of the upgrades on cavalry units. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm more in your line of thinking, Kevin. Um, this character is probably going to be your general, or at least the character you're going to want doing all the stuff, all the killing for your army.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that +1 strength and weapon skill is huge, especially in, an army that is kind of lacking those high strength, reliable attacks. Even give this guy like an ogre blade and see if you can get some work done on monsters and stuff. Um, but yeah, I'm not so sure about the upgrades. Maybe it's just because I've never really had a chance to use them, so Ryan probably knows better if those are good or not. But for me, it's kind of like a nothing to me. It's more the other stuff that this gives, especially being like having access to Bretonian magic items. Like they got some good shit in there.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I like this one, and I think he'll probably be like one of the more common upgrades.
Yeah, I think the two first ones are the ones you're going to see the most. But yeah, Andrew, why don't you take us through the third one, the Outlaws and Renegades?
Yeah, so the Noble Outlaw, um, a model with this infamous origin has +1 modifier to their ballistic skill and leadership. They gain Hold the Line from the, I guess, Empire list. They may purchase magic items from the Empire of Man magic items list in Forces of Fantasy. And then they get an expanded equipment allowance so they can take handguns, repeater pistols, short bows, long bows, and they can take ambushers and scouts. And then they unlock stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the Outlaw Renegade, he can give units of Hireling Outriders 0 to 1 of them the Ambusher special rule for 1 point per model. I kind of like this one just because this is how you're going to get those Empire magic items too. Um, I see a lot of people sort of having buzz with this army and the Griffin banner. So that's a good way to get that in if you make this guy like a BSB on your other dude. Ambushing Outriders is kind of neat in my mind, but also they're the ones with Impetuous, right?
No,
Yes.
they haven't.
Oh well, no, because they're a different type of Outriders. Yeah, the
And
Empire
regular
Outriders.
Outriders don't either.
Oh, in my head they were Empire Outriders.
No, that's Pistoliers from Empire that you're thinking
Pistoliers.
of.
Sorry, yes, yeah.
That's right. That's right. Fuck. Okay, then never mind. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I don't know. This one's kind of like meh. Like,
Yeah.
It's not like they have the ballista skill thing is like whatever because it's like no, they don't really have access to like a super sweet like ranged weapon that's one extra shot hitting at like a better ballista skill is not going to make a difference. I think it's just you take this more to unlock Empire magic items and try to do something with that.
Yeah. You want to go before me, Ryan? I think we may have come to some of the similar conclusions. Yeah.
So just firstly on the like, just a note, the +1 leadership on this and the Mirangelo one does also mean you have to be really careful which dude you take it on if you want the knight to be your general.
Fair. Yeah.
That's a stupid new rule.
But with that said, like the noble outlaw is like your perfect BSB. Like he'll be leadership 8,
Okay.
hold the line, makes you immune to panic, gives you access to Empire magic items, which has the better magic banners that a BSB cares about.
Yeah.
And then you can also just do silly things like throw the witch hunter's ward and whatnot on. Like, you just like it's a great bundle for 20 points to slap on a 35-point character to be able to put him in a unit and then unlock all these other things. Like that's like my Nuln Halberd brick. It's like the BSB is caddying all of the cool stuff that comes out of the Empire side of the magic items. Where the Bretonnian side is more about buffing the person who has the items. The Empire stuff is about buffing the unit. And then again, hold the line, making the unit immune to panic. Or maybe it's immune to panic in a specific situation. But the point being is it's fewer tests, which is good.
Yeah, especially with a low leadership army.
Yeah, like +1 ballistic skills, whatever. But at the same time, like, if you are slapping this dude on a horse with some other guys, him, one shot at higher ballistic skills, not great, but repeater handgun
3
worth of
shots.
shots
Yeah.
at higher ballistic skill is pretty decent.
Is decent. Yeah.
But
Is it
the
though?
thing that, I mean, I use it all the time, but the kind of running trend here is that, like, all of these are a little bit of a mixed message. Like, they all do a little bit of something you want and a little bit of something you don't care about. Except for the next one, which you just don't care about. But so it's just an interesting thing, and it's none of it's super optimized, which I think is a good thing, even though that runs counter to kind of like the competitive idea.
Sure.
It's fine, but this is the one I see taking all the time. But that's because I just see Griffin Banner, or even silly things like on the wizard, like on the Outcast wizard, being able to unlock the armor of Tarnus, or the wizard's staff, or a familiar, like the again, the Empire has a lot of good magic items compared to, like, having used an Outcast wizard a lot. I eventually got to the point where I was just like not taking magic items on him because they were just not doing anything.
Yeah.
So being able to give him light armor and a 5-up ward save is not bad.
Agreed.
And a gun. You can have a wizard with a gun. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going, Ryan, with this. I think I prefer like the first one for infantry rather than the noble outlaw. Like the Might of Miagliano or whatever. I like the Noble Outlaw specifically for the Outcast Wizard. I think it opens up some really fun, neat little opportunities here. A wizard with a bunch of ambushing outriders with a machine gun or a repeater handgun or whatever, and access to buffed up ballistic skill, access to the Empire arcane items is just a fun little, pretty cheap overall package. Just to fuck around in your opponent's backline when they come up, tossing fireballs or what have you from behind their lines. It's a fun little piece. And as you mentioned, like the Empire has some really good arcane items, which definitely will pump up the value on an Outcast Wizard, which I think is a pretty decent wizard now that the casting levels have been brought into line, where he's still going to get that plus everybody else. It has access to basically all of the good lores in the game, so it is I think definitely I like it for the wizard especially. I mean, it'll work with your infantry too, because people just love the Griffin banner. I don't think it's that as good as people think it is, but especially for the investment you need to go through, I'd rather just take the first one, which is what's its actual name, which is the mercenary hosts. I think that one is overall better for infantry. But yeah, it is definitely like a playable one for sure. Unlike, I think, the last one, which is a little bit less of a glowing proposition. You want to cover the Wandering Duelists, Ryan?
Yes. So, Wandering Duelists. So I'll start since I'm already on the other page. So for 20 points, you can make your guy a Wandering Diestro. A Wandering Diestro gets +2 weapon skill, gains the Feint and Dodge special rule, cannot take any weapons with the Strike Last rule, and can take an additional hand weapon for 3 points. The Feint and Dodge rule says once per game, when an enemy model directs its attacks against a model with the special rule, and then there is no other text. So I'm sure there will be like a day one FAQ fixing that.
Yeah.
Wandering
Presumably,
Duelist.
it's great.
Presumably, it's going to look an awful lot like the Wandering Duelist's ability that I'm about to read. For each character in your army that has the Wandering Diestro from his origin, 0 to 1 unit of Border Prince's Brigands can have +1 modifier to their weapon skill for 2 points per model. In addition, once per game, models within this unit may make enemy models that direct their attacks against them during the combat phase reroll successful hits. So, like, it's just such a weird collection of things. Like 2 points a model to go to weapon skill 4 on the Border Prince of Brigands is not like crazy impressive. And on
No.
top of that, like they're impetuous. Like the Border Prince's Brigands are a weird unit that, like, again, everyone kind of wound up settling on ambushing dudes with blunderbusses or pistols for a reason. Because
Yeah.
every other setup for them gets screwed by their bad leadership and impetuous, or, you know, them just trying to do too many different things. You can put 50 points worth of magic items on the champion, though. So, like, you can
Yeah.
do some weird shit. But I get 2 points a model, like 6 points a model at that point, and then it's just all downhill from there.
Yes.
And same thing with the character upgrade. Like, if you're going to invest that kind of stuff, you're probably, for thematic reasons, probably putting it on your prince. And he's weapon skill 6, and weapon skill 8 is like the worst break point in existence,
Yeah.
because you get a slight advantage against people who are weapon skill 7,
But who
and
will crush you in combat?
and then you die. So,
Yes.
like a Bretonian Duke
Ah.
just rocks
Yeah.
a and you die.
Yeah.
um
I hit your Chaos Lord on Dragon on 3s, but then unfortunately my Strength 4 3 attacks are going to let me down pretty hard.
Don't forget my fourth attack for my extra hand weapon.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, my bad.
But yeah, like it's yeah. No, and the only thing I can get out of my head is the like douchey swordmaster from Game of Thrones. That's
Yeah, I
all I
think
can think
no.
of.
The only
Was
one I
it
can see
Princess
is the
Bride?
Princess Bride. No, the only the only one I can think about is the old Dogs of War unit. Was it like a Vespano's Vendetta or whatever, where they're just basically a unit of duelists?
Something like
I think
that.
those are the
Yeah.
guys. Yeah,
I feel
two.
like that sentence is an oxymoron, like a unit of duelists, but
Okay, sorry, a loose grouping of duelists.
a collective, autonomous collective of duelists. Yeah.
Exactly. Just
Anyway,
a happen
I'm done shitting on this.
yeah,
You guys
yeah,
go on.
a happenstance gathering of duelists. Yeah. Um. Yeah, Andrew, what do you think about the wandering duelists?
Just I don't see the point. Like, what does he
Yeah.
do? Like he brings kind of nothing to the table. Sure, he gets a little bit better weapon skill, but it's already on like a human based character, so it's like cool. He hits better with nothing. You need to give him something like really strong, like an ogre blade, to make those attacks worth anything. But even
Yeah.
then, it's like he's still like a human. He's gonna die, which I guess is a little hypocritical coming from an elf player with somewhat similar stats. But at least I have high initiative and fucking speed and like I don't know.
Dragons.
I just don't dragons. Well, like I bring the hag. She's only
Yeah. Sure.
strength 3, toughness 4, or toughness 3, strength 4, but she also has always strikes first and super high weapon skill and movement
Yeah.
6 and like all this other shit going for her, right? So I don't know. I just don't see the point.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of on the same boat you guys are on here. Like the fact that it's limited to Border Prince's brigands is problematic, for sure. Like that's the first strike for me is that not being able to take a great weapon on suddenly your nice your very high weapon skill lord is problematic, because your the things you actually want to kill with your character or your lord or your general or whatever are things that are going to be higher than toughness 4, and then preventing you from taking great weapons is going to definitely hurt that significantly. So yeah, I don't think it's very good. The dodge and feint rule, the feint and dodge rule, which is probably going to look like the other one there. Being able to force your opponent to re-roll all their successful hits is a nifty thing, is a cool thing to have. I just wish it was on something else than Border Prince's brigands, because you could really put this to good use in like a buffed up unit of cavalry or of like some veteran uh, sellswords that you've just invested a lot of money in, so that big combat, like that critical round of combat that they have, like the opponent doesn't really get to actually do that many hits on them. That would be great. But yeah, all of that is for naught because it doesn't work that way. So yeah, I don't think you'll see a ton of this one. Maybe the odd unit to do something fun and narrative, but otherwise it's not great. Okay, so let's talk about the actual units here, because there are a significant amount. Sorry, no, wait. Before we do that, just overall, how do you guys think these armies will be constructed? How do you think these rules are going to play out on the tabletop? Do you think they're going to be impactful? Do they come together to make a good army from your perspective? Like, just how do you see the overall system now that we've really dove into it, Andrew?
I think we've like kind of alluded to it before, where it's like depending on your choices here, it's going to impact your overall army picks, which then is going to dictate your play style. So like if you lean heavily into um the Expertonian guy, the Renegade Knight, you're gonna see a lot of knight units on the board to sort of shepherd this guy around, be extra runes for against shooting. And you're probably going to lean more heavily into that. Same with like the noble outlaw, you're going to, or sorry, the noble outlaw. Um, No, sorry. The Tillian guy. He's
Yeah.
gonna dictate. You're gonna have more like foot blocks, and trying to like lock down sections of the board, play the objective game. So it's gonna like shape how your army looks. So these rules specifically, maybe like in a roundabout way, it'll affect how your army plays because it's gonna dictate your choices for the rest of your army depending on what characters you pick. If that makes sense.
Yep. 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 I agree with you there. But before I go, Ryan, what do you think?
So I generally agree, and like I've kind of already gone over some of this, where it's just a matter of, you know, the characters are going to influence what you bring in the army, or what you bring in the army is going to influence how you shape and create those characters. Um, but all of every option has inefficiencies in it, where you're paying for X, Y, or Z thing that you want, and then kind of taking some other stuff along with it that you don't really care about. Um, but I do like that, you can really theme all your characters, and it gives them a bit of a story, and it unlocks different options and everything. Um, I just wish that, maybe instead of, the things where the characters we're about to talk about costing the points that they do, that, maybe instead they were just slightly more expensive and you just picked these things. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Agreed. Yeah. So
That's all.
I think from my perspective, I think it's a good system. I think as we covered, it doesn't like the points that's unfortunate, but I think the best version of this list does not come from you picking one of these and just sticking with it throughout. It's a bit more of a mix and match type situation here. I think whenever all the lists I've sort of thought about and designed for this, I kind of always sort of gravitate towards the same thing. So I think your prince is probably going to be an outcast knight, just to get that little bit of a beat stick unit with higher strength, especially out of the prince himself there at strength 7 with either a lance or a great weapon, and then whatever magic weapon you want to invest into him. I think that is your best option by far for a beat stick character. I think you're going to want 2 captains. That are mercenary hosts or Telea or flavored, just because they will play the phalanxes will play the missions very, very well. You just have to make sure that you don't fall into the trap of over investing into your sellswords. And I'd still stick with an outcast wizard as like an outlaw and renegade, or like the empire themed one, just because of the utility that comes with some of the special rules you can put on, the utility that comes with the items, and then just a wizard with a machine gun. I rest my case. So I think it is I think the lists will sort of gravitate towards that kind of construct. Okay, so let's talk about the units now. So the first one, I think, let's start with, let's kick off with Ryan, the Renegade Lords.
Yep. So they come in 2 flavors. You have your prince and your captain. They're both movement 4. The prince is weapon skill 6, the captain 5. They're both ballistic skill 4, strength 4, toughness 4. The prince has 3 wounds, the captain has 2 wounds. Prince initiative 5, captain 4, 3 attacks and 2 attacks respectively. The prince being leadership 8, the captain being leadership 7. At 75 points for the prince and 35 points for the captain. They're regular infantry. They come stocked with a hand weapon and light armor, rallying cry, veteran, and warband. That's interesting. They come with veteran. That's yet another thing you're paying for in the Outcast Knight that you already have. Okay. Um, sure.
Yeah, but
So
it doesn't apply to the unit?
no, like the
No?
the Outcast Knight thing doesn't give
Yeah.
the unit veteran.
Okay, it's only the character.
Yeah. Now
Okay.
the veteran knights just have veteran already.
Yeah,
So
fair. Okay, that's why.
But the
So
point being is
everything has it. Yeah.
the only thing that gains veteran from the Outcast Knight upgrade or whatever it is, the Renegade Knight upgrade, would be an Outcast Wizard. If you wanted to make him a knight for some
Amazing.
thematic reason.
Yeah.
So in terms of weapons, they can take a great weapon for 4 points, a halberd for 3, a lance if appropriately mounted for 4, a morning star for 3. They could take a war bow for 3, a crossbow for 4, a pistol for 5, or a brace of pistols for 10. They could take a shield. They can swap their light armor for heavy armor for 3 points, or full plate for 6 points. They may be mounted on a warhorse or a barded warhorse. Those are just exactly the same as their Empire versions. I won't really beat that to death. I think the only weird advantage here is that the warhorse actually gets counter charge and first charge randomly.
Mhm.
And then the prince can take 100 points of magic items and the captain can take 50. So it is like, this is your, like, aside from having baked in veteran and warband and slightly worse native leadership, this is your empire general and captain stats and options, basically. So they're, you know, they're a delivery system for the other abilities we've really talked about.
Exactly.
Like, there's nothing about this that you're going to wind up building significantly different than like an empire captain or an empire captain with access to Bretonian magic items. Like, that's
Yeah.
that's all that's going to wind up being. So,
Yeah.
but they are cheap as shit. Like 35 points is
Well,
cheaper than an empire captain.
it is. But yeah, but it's really 55 points minimum because you're probably taking one of those 4 origins, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, for my part, I generally like these guys. You're not doing anything crazy with them, but they are a delivery system for the buffs that come with the origin stories behind them. So really, you can look at them as I just mentioned, being 55 at a minimum or 60, and then 95 or 100 points base, which is still a pretty decent, going rate for general type characters and captain type characters. I think they've got access to some really fun, build a bear style equipment options. So you could go wild with it. You can't achieve much at the end, but at least you can make your captain or prince look exactly as you see them to be, so you want them to be, so that's great. Unfortunately, I think one of the things that does let them down is that they only have access innately to the common magic items, and you are locked into one of 2 different origin stories if you want to get access to your Bretonian or your Empire ones. So that is a bit of a letdown, especially if you're going with like the Chilean themed version of it, the mercenary host or whatever. That one is just going to be on bare ass common magic items, so that is a bit of an issue. But overall, they do what they're supposed to. They're just good little delivery systems for the origins. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I think you guys mostly covered it. Like I do kind of see maybe because of how cheap the captains are, sprinkling them in like goblin players do with like
Yep.
their goblin lords, and just having them in every single unit, even if they're not like fully kitted out, just giving those units like a little bit of an extra punch, a little bit of an extra, leadership bump and things like that. So I think you can like kind of spam the captains at least around your army more so than you would with like an empire, like a basic empire list. So I think that's kind of like a cool little thing you can have here. Um, and like even you mount them, and I'm surprised you're not all over the having little throwaway dart guys in the form of 35-point captains with like a lance and on a horse, and just kind of send them forward to fuck with chaff and things like that.
Yeah, only 2 attacks
Uh,
though. Like your Khan
It's
gets
the same
3 at
problem I
least.
have with. It's the same problem I have with the yeoman sergeants in Bretonia. Like I could do
just
that,
don't.
it doesn't work.
It doesn't do
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, whatever
But
then. Fuck.
but like I mean maybe. Look, you're looking for options here. The list is pretty limited, so maybe you do that.
Yeah, like you got to do something here, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
probably.
yeah, I don't
Okay.
know. There's not much to say. Like all their juice comes from the origins, and we've already kind of covered that. So there's not really much to go over their basic fucking characters.
Yep. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So let's go to the next one. One that I like a lot, the Sellsword Infantry. So the Sellsword Infantry is like your basic state troop type variety infantry. There's actually 2 units here. There's the Sellswords and then the veteran Sellswords. And I think you can take, if memory serves, a unit of veteran Sellswords also in the core. I think it's 1 is the limit.
You can take 2 of them. Or
Up
0
to
to
2 of
1
them.
per
Okay.
1,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, so you can also take them in core, so they're both going to actually see play as a result. So yeah, okay. So what you get for a bargain basement price value of 4 points per model on the sellswords is so you get a movement 4. It's basically a human stat line, guys. Like movement 4, 3s across the board, except for 1 wound, obviously, and 1 attack each. Their leadership is pretty low at leadership 5. They do pump up to leadership 6 if you put an officer in charge. So very basic stat line, which is fine because it's 4 points, and that's perfectly okay. The veteran sellswords are again on the human stat line of 3s across the board, except that they get an upgraded weapon skill to 4. That's the only difference. It's just an upgraded weapon skill for an extra point for 5 points. Where the real, I think the real juice comes from in terms of these guys is they are basically like in any other army, they would be like 3 units, but they are under one banner here. Because you can put all the equipment options on them if you want, right? You can give them thrusting spears, halberds, critically great weapons, which is a very important one to have, crossbows, which are a good ranged weapon, handguns, which are an okay ranged weapon, more expensive. You can give them shields. You can replace their light armor with heavy armor. And that's just for the basic guys. Then they can obviously have full command, so that's great. Your veterans, on top of that, can replace their light armor with full plate. Can get a magic standard of up to 50 points. They can get drilled, and then their veteran officer may also take magic items for up to 25 points. In terms of special rules, you get close order, like on the basic sellswords. I know I'm doing like 2 units at once here. The basic sellswords will get close order, detachment, horde, regimental unit, and warband. Horde and warband is great when you're trying to play objective type games with infantry, so that's good. And then veteran sellswords have all of the same things, and then get a veteran on top. So, as I said, I think these are a really, really good little package. So they're cheaper than Empire States troops at base value with way better equipment options. They're the same price base as your Bretonian man-at-arms. I think overall these guys come out better for me than men at arms just because they have access to so many options and you can do exactly whatever you want with them out of it. So there's definitely that to say for them. I think as we've mentioned already a few times here, there is like you can go down a deep dark hole of misery if you start to invest in these guys and you give them all heavy armor and then you give them all, I don't know, handguns and a great weapon, and you're like, oh, it must be one of the following, so that would work. But you give them like handguns or whatever, and like you're just going to start spending an inordinate amount of time on basic human bodies. I think you treat these guys as slightly better upgraded versions of like goblins. You keep them cheap with just like your light armor and your and give them a shield there, and suddenly you're on a a 4-up in close combat. Obviously, when you're in close order, so with the parry rule, with a ton of wounds, like that's the way to play them on. Definitely, if you want to win games, rather than go the path of really investing in them. And then if you want, maybe and go and look at veteran cell swords as like a little bit more of a hammer unit potentially with great weapons, because they're going to be strength 5, weapon skill 4, which for still a decently cheap price. And that's you could do something with them at 8 points per model or whatever. Yeah, so those are my thoughts. I like them. I think you'll see them in every list. They're perfectly serviceable, and they just give you a lot of options. You can make some decent little shooting units too on the side there. So yeah, I like them. So what are your thoughts, guys? Starting with Ryan.
Again, I like them. Like, I mean, I'm already using state troops normally, so they're, it's one of those things where, again, as I look back, some of the benefits kind of, like, other than the benefit of being natively cheaper, some of it kind of cancels out, where it's like they get warband but have one less leadership. So
Sure.
their leadership, like, they can get it to a 9 without a captain, which is like without adding a character, which is cool.
Yeah.
But again, like, Yeoman Guard can natively get stubborn, and like, there's a lot of trade-offs here. But what I think is cool in this army, like, I guess I would never take this army and build it like my empire. It's a thing where, like, I would take this and build something I can't build somewhere else. So, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just want to have, kind of crappy great swords as your core, or, you know, weirdly there might actually be play to, like, veterans with full plate shield and thrusting spear. Um
I think
Fighting
that's a
in
trap
three,
a lot of people are gonna go down though, is they're gonna
but it'll
see
be
this army
cool.
and try to recreate an Empire list or a Bretonian list. Like I think people are gonna go down that
Yeah.
route just because the option is there to do so.
8.
Yeah, I think you go horde with these guys. Like treat them like
Yeah.
goblins, basically.
No, but, like, for example, like, if you were to make a 30-man block with full plate shield and spears and a phalanx, it would cost the same or slightly less than my 30-man veteran state troop halberdiers. So, like, and now you're saving on a 3-up and fighting in 3 ranks, and you're a phalanx and blah blah blah. Like, there's something you can do there.
Yeah, because it has all the options.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as I said, and this is where, like, you can take heavy armored crossbowmen or whatever. Like, there's a lot of creativity, but you're right. Like, don't just throw every option on something without a plan of, like, what you're using it for. Um, but yeah, like,
Yeah.
I don't think I would go with great weapon infantry, like great swords at weapon skill 5 and, all that are bad. Um, Weapon skill 3 or
But
4
they're
great
also
swords.
definitely more expensive too. Yeah. And not in
Um,
core.
5, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, you're 2 points cheaper, but have worse everything.
Sure.
Because, yeah, you've got less strength, less weapon skill. But anyway, like, I like the versatility of it. You can mess around with a lot of different options. Um, but I think investing too much in them is a trap, because they're not going to perform significantly better than the same amount of state troops, yeoman guard, goblins, or what have you.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I think it's a full-on horde unit. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, like I think you guys kind of covered it. Like, it's cool that you basically have this toolkit to make the unit you want. But the trap is you're gonna want them to have like everything you can put on them. Um, and again, you're just tacking in all this like really expensive equipment and upgrades on a basic fucking human model that
Yeah.
doesn't really have a lot of other stuff going on for it. So you kind of just have big hordes of almost naked dudes and just go with that instead.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
know, make your one elite unit of like maybe a little bit more money was spent on them, but at the same time, like these guys aren't going to be single-handedly winning you games. So it's like how, you know, you got to balance how much you're actually going to spend on this unit as opposed to, you know, some of the other options in the book. You know, I think you might have your points better spent on some of the knights we're going to talk about or whatever.
Yeah. All right. Ryan, you want to do the speaking of the knights, the free blades?
Of course. Okay, so Freeblade Knights come in a lot of varieties, so it's going to be interesting. So your regular knights, um, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 3, 1 attack, leadership 8 for 18 points a model. Sergeant gets a second attack, but no bump to leadership. And they have close order, counter charge, first charge, and swift stride. The veteran version is strength 4 and gains veteran, and everything else is the same for 22 points a model. They are heavy cavalry. They come with hand weapons and heavy armor, and they come stock mounted on war horses, which are movement 8 but don't have barding, and can be upgraded to barded war horses, which drops them down to movement 7 for plus 3 points. So again, and then they can have lance. So they must take lances or great weapons for 1 point a model. The entire unit can take shields for 1 point a model. And you can have full command. You can replace your heavy veterans can replace their heavy armor with full plate, and veterans can purchase a magic standard worth up to 50 points. So yeah, these are again max customization, which is really cool, and you can do some neat stuff like having the guys on the lighter horses, not necessarily springing for the barding, kind of like the Marauder Huskarls.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like if you build the same chassis, like if you take the Freeblade Knight, you start at 18 points, you go up to 21 points to be on a barded warhorse, 22 points to have a lance, 23 points to have a shield. You now cost 1 point less
Than the Knight of
than
the Realm.
a Knight of the Realm.
Yeah.
And you're worse at, like, you are slower, you don't have finest war horses, you don't have a magical ward save. You don't natively have lance formation, which you're now paying another 2 points per model plus character tax for.
Yeah.
So, so if you try to build Bretonnian Knights, they're actually more expensive than Bretonnian Knights. And then the veterans are like immediately more expensive than Inner Circle.
Mhm.
So you're just in kind of this weird, like, what do I do stage? But at the same time, like, you can make kind of a weird budget unit at 24 or 6, like maybe almost 28 points a model of like questing knight analogs, where you just have full plate and a great weapon on a regular warhorse. Not great, but it's different. Yeah. That's kind of my theme of everything here is like all like I circle back to my point about inefficiency. Like you can do almost everything this army does better with Bretonnian exiles or some flavor of empire, but you can't do everything this army does with either of those armies.
I agree.
Anyway, like they are perfectly serviceable generic knights, but the problem is if you attempt to kit them out just like their Empire or Bretonnian counterparts, you come out more expensive every time, which means you're just worse.
Yeah.
But depending on how people rule what warhorse a wizard takes, there's some weirdness with outcast wizards and the warhorse. You can at least slap an outcast wizard into these dudes, and then cast demonology spells on them or something. Which is something you can't do in the Bretonnian army. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. Andrew, you wanna what are your thoughts on these guys?
At least with like the veteran free blades, I think you're gonna see at least people trying to do something around those, even if they are a little bit more expensive than their counterparts in the other two armies. Having that one little blip of strength up, paired with a lance, all of a sudden you're strength 6. That's a good spot to be. They got all the cavalry rules you want. Counter charge, first charge, swift stride. Giving them veteran is pretty sweet as well. So yeah, especially if you are taking that the Bretonnian hero, like he's definitely going to be parking in a unit with the free blade veterans. But yeah, again, other armies that this is trying to sort of replicate does it better and cheaper. So it's a little bit of a letdown, but again, given that this is sort of the way the army works, like you gotta kind of take what you get here, and I think they're these units will see some play for sure.
Yeah, agreed. And the previous one too, I think. But I agree with you, Andrew. These will see play. I think they're good, but like they come with a significant asterisk with regards to the cost. I think at 18 points a model, that is pretty aggressively priced for some decent cavalry with some good options. I think the name of the game, at least from my perspective and how personally I see the game right now, is you must keep these guys cheap. As Ryan sort of eventually walked onto, like thematically or I don't know, like in his thinking there is, I don't think if you try to make these guys Knights of the Realm, you're probably, well, not that it's a mistake, but it's not optimal. I think you want to keep them cheaper than Knights of the Realm and just give them that those lances and maybe a shield, and then suddenly you're already on a 4 up at strength 5 for 20 points a model, which is almost a 25% less cost for than like your Knights of the Realm or your Empire Knights at that point. So that is decent for sure. I think you'll see these guys a lot. I think, again, they can be a trap, but we've mentioned that. We mentioned that already. I think the veteran free blades, probably, like if you want to get a good hammer unit, you put your lord as like a Bretonnian exile or whatever at strength 7, and then you have a unit of veteran free blades with them, which are going to be strength 6, at least on the charge, maybe always if you go great weapons. And then you can put an outcast wizard in there. And because they still come with the what you call with the regular horses. So yeah, you can put your captains on regular horses too in your generals. So yeah, you can have a buff piece in there with a wizard. So like there's really good options to do interesting things just because of how many options there are. And as Andrew pointed out, like you have all the important special rules for your cavalry, counter charge, first charge, swift stride. Like Job's a good one at that point. Veteran is great, but you've got enough to work with here. Again, I think the name of the game is keep them as cheap as possible. Cool. So let's move on to the next one, Andrew. Hireling Outriders.
Yeah, so these are your light cav unit for the army. They come in at 11 points. They have a basic human stat line, so weapon skill, ballistic strength, toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 3, 1 attack, leadership 7. You can take a captain, which won't be confusing at all when you're trying to explain that, but it's your sergeant. He just has 1 blip of ballistic skill higher. They're like have, like I said, unit size of 5 plus. They come with hand weapons base. Is it? So for upgrades, again, like the other options, there's a big smorgasbord of options. So they can take cavalry spears, short bows, pistols, or abrasive pistols. So they may take one of those. The entire unit can take either light armor or heavy armor, and they can also take shields. Any unit can upgrade one model to be the captain, which is your unit champion. They can have a standard and a musician as well. For every 1,000 points spent, one unit can be upgraded to have feign flight, reserve, move, vanguard, and purchase up a magic standard up to 50 points. This is, I kind of dig these guys. These are your, fairly cheap. Did I go over the special rules?
You forgot.
I don't think so. Yeah, so they come with also fast cav, fire and flee. They're open order, but they can also go skirmish, which is nice for your light infantry units, and they have swift stride. So I dig this unit. They're, super cheap. At least compared to dark elf, light cav, and high elf ones. And you can kind of, again, kit these out to fulfill the role you specifically want them to do. So I can see, brace of pistols with like feign flight or something, and just keep them like almost naked and run around. That's pretty awesome. Otherwise, just cheap chaff, locking down cable quarters for those types of missions. Using, if you give them Vanguard, trying to take objectives early on in the game. One cool thing I'm kind of seeing too is not related to their rules, but representing this unit in your games. It says you can even use like high elf Illyrian Reavers, so that's a cool way to sort of bring in the aspect of, this is an army built of mercenaries. You can bring in high elves and just kind of kit them out to have the sort of same abilities as like a high elf Illyrian Reaver unit. But yeah, there's not too much to write home about. They're your kind of basic light cav unit and can do all the things you want your light cav to do, depending on how you kit them out.
Awesome. Ran, what are your thoughts?
This is probably one of my favorite of all the units in the book.
Because you're obsessed with cavalry, though.
Specifically,
you've seen my username. Yes, like again, if I can make an army out of light cavalry, I just as well might.
Yep.
But like they can do a little bit of everything. Like it's your mounted yeoman, it's your pistoliers, it's your road wards, whatever. So, I think this is a super versatile unit that will show up in a lot of Renegade Crown armies because Feigned Flight pistols is like one of the
Yeah.
most fun things in this game. So, yeah, I don't have much to add there.
Yeah, I think I like this unit a lot. I think it's a very good unit. Firstly, it's in core, and there's no limitations on how many. So if you want to fill up your entire core with a bunch of skirmishing like cav units, go for fill your boots. So that is a big positive. Skirmish cav is a really good unit type to have in an army. It plays the missions pretty well, like Tibble quarters, that kind of stuff, running down baggage trains, just being able to curl around units because of their skirmisher-ness is good. They bring decent enough shooting to the table, especially with options like pistols and stuff. Fire and Flee, Faint Flight, Vanguard. Like there's just a bunch of useful rules you can toss on there. I think you can have two sort of roles even with them. You can have your you just give them cavalry spears and have them run down war machines and that kind of stuff as skirmishers. Be basically your hobgoblin wolf riders or whatever type unit, or your Illyrian Reavers type unit or whatever. Significantly worse point for point, but nonetheless, you understand my point. And then you can have a second role of like actual ranged skirmishers. Specifically, I think also to accompany a mounted wizard is another really good option. So yeah, I like these guys. I like that they're in core. I like that they're not limited in core. I like that you could do again a ton of stuff with them. I think this is a good unit. You're going to see plenty of them. I think the first three units we've covered, you're going to see plenty of. They're all perfectly good and usable units. So now we get into the slightly less usable units. The first one is the Border Prince's organ guns. So obviously an organ gun is completely fine, and we love a good organ gun. The problem and the reason why you're never going to see it is because it's competing with slots with the Border Prince's bombards, which are just critical to this army. So it's 0 to 1 per 1,000. However, if you do make it past that point, they are basically just a straight up organ gun on ballistic skill 3. So human stat line, now that really actually matters. Toughness 7 against shooting, of course. 125 points. I forget, Ryan, is it 120 points for a dwarf organ gun or 125? I forget.
Well, a Hellblaster volley gun's 125.
Okay.
So
yeah, so that is definitely on the pricier side.
Or 120. 120
yeah.
per Hellblaster.
Okay, so you're more expensive than a Hellblaster with less shots, like 2/3 of the shots. That's unfortunate. But again, I would posit that it doesn't actually matter because bombards exist, and those are the only things you're really going to see. So I like that there's the option. I think this army doesn't necessarily suffer from having an issue killing infantry, so I don't know that you need them, but it is cool that it's there. Everybody likes a good organ gun, so I don't have a ton to say about this guy. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, it's neat that it's there, and again, in a world of doing thematic things that aren't just taking the most optional option, I could see maybe taking 1 and 1. But as you guys brought up earlier, the lack of an engineer really hurts this and the mortar that we're going to talk about. Like, I've used double bombards since the game came out, and never once was like, man, I really need an engineer because their misfire table is very
Even better.
forgiving.
Yeah.
Like, oh, one of the results is it still shoots anyway. Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. So it's, but whereas like my volley guns in my Hellblasters in my Nuln army, like the engineer is the linchpin of the whole thing, either helping to re-roll a misfire or lending their ballistic skill. So an organ gun without an engineer is not something I'm like super excited about. And then not that
Agreed.
it'll come up a ton, but being levies, They like you can't, if they panic on their leadership of 7, nothing's helping them, and they're just running away. So there's that.
Yep, agreed. And yeah, again, it's just like 125 points is too many points for this from the get-go, and then they're competing for the best cannon in the game, with the best cannon in the game for slots. So Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you guys covered it. Like, it's cool they have access to it, but there's just better ways to spend not only those points, but that slot in your army list, especially when it's competing with the Bombard.
Okay. Ryan, you want to go through one thing that's probably going to see even less play, the mortars?
Yes, the Border Prince's mortar. It's a mortar, but it's only 90 points and is a
Ooh.
levies. So it's 5 points cheaper than an Empire mortar,
That's nice.
but lacks the one thing. Like, again, I have a lot of time for the Empire mortar in the current version of the game, just because, like, I'm seeing a lot of toughness 3 infantry rectangles that strength 2 AP minus a lot 5-inch blast, does stuff too. But at the same time, like, it's not an amazing choice. And again, you need an engineer near it to help it hit stuff. So that is the problem I run into. And I don't think it really adds to like the play style of this army either. Although I guess technically you could build a weird Napoleonic gunline army out of this with 2 cannons and 4 mortars and just a buttload of handgun dudes.
And you're there for it.
Like,
I can already.
Yeah,
I don't know why I
that's
just
not.
realized this, that you can actually have a unit of handgunners with detachments of handgunners.
Don't lie. You already have this
Someone,
army half built, don't you?
Yeah, I can tell.
someone charges you, and you just shoot them with 3 units of handguns. That's a thing. So cool. But yeah, like it doesn't do anything impressively. It's like if I had 90 points, I would take 2 more captains. um,
Yeah.
instead of a mortar. So
Yeah. Look, if I try to find some sort of redeeming quality for them, it is that they are basically the only thing, except for a unit of knights in special. So, if you keep your infantry nice and cheap, then I don't know, and you've bought your 2 cannons that are basically going to be 200 points out of your army. Maybe you got plenty of points to just throw in some like 4
bone grinder giant.
Fair enough. Yeah, mortars in general are not great. So I don't have a ton to say. Yeah, I don't think you'll see a ton of them, frankly. Okay, Andrew, what are your, any parting words of wisdom for the Border Princess mortar?
Just need to check something right quick. I mean, it doesn't take up your slot with the cannon. So maybe you
Yeah,
take
that's in
2
special.
cannons
Yeah,
Listen,
and a
you
couple
take 2
mortars.
cannons and 4 mortars.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they
I
don't
don't
do
know.
much with this.
That's about all I got.
But on the other hand, that's 400 points, 360 points of mortars that don't do much. So, like,
That's
that's
a
the
giant worth of mortars.
Yeah. So that goes back to what I was saying at the start of this review, and that like it feels like the top third of this book is missing because you're like, well, I guess I'm going to spend my points on 4 mortars now because there's nothing else for me to spend them on. So, anyways, okay. Yeah. So that mostly covers it. So like, just 1,000-foot view now that we've covered them all. Like, what do you guys think are sort of the standouts in the units here? What do you think we'll see a lot of play that you can actually do something with competitively, and what do you think are kind of the write-offs? Let's start with I don't know, Ryan.
I like the infantry. I like the light cavalry unit. I'm not as sold on the knights because if I wanted to take a bunch of them, I would just play my existing army.
Sure.
But I think there's a lot of interesting things you could do with the infantry component. Um, Honestly, the standout units to me in this whole construct are actually things that aren't even in this book. They're
Oh
things
yeah.
like the Bretonian Bombard and the Outcast Wizard and the like Doom Seekers that you take in this army. Um, so that's that. But it's again, it all comes together to make a very nice little package that you can play around with.
Yeah. Yeah, like the most stereotypical like fantasy army ever. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, and like none of this is hard coded to be humans either. Like sellsword infantry could very well be your halflings, and you can have like a full halfling army out of this, and it would be great. Okay, Andrew, any like what do you think of the units overall? Like, what are you going to be seeing and that kind of stuff?
Definitely like the infantry uh, in both of its forms. I think you're going to see quite a bit of. Um, Definitely the light cav, just because light cav in general is such a good utility piece, especially skirmishing light cav.
Yeah,
So we're, you know, you'd be foolish not to take those units just for playing the objective and secondaries game. Um, Other than that, like obviously the captains and things. Um, I think that's where you get a lot of the flavor into this list because a lot of this stuff is kind of generic in some fashion. And then like Ryan said, the stuff that's not actually in this book. So bombards, wizards, um, whatever flavor of Dog's War you choose to sprinkle into this. Like I think
yeah,
that's where you're gonna see a lot of the cool stuff coming in as well. And kind of I'm interested to see sort of like what other players decide or figure out what to throw in to actually get some juice going here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. For my part, I think so. Like top of the class here. I think you've got some really solid infantry options, some really solid light cavalry options, really solid artillery options with the Border Prince's Bombard, obviously. Like you can work with that. I think you have good options for your regular cavalry and the knights, and good options for your buffing, rules spreading renegade lords, and then your I think a good option in your wizard. So like these are all things you can work with. So none of the core pieces of the army are bad, which is like definitely more than a lot of armies can say. And then your two new pieces of artillery, I think, are kind of the write-offs of the list. Unfortunately, Border Prince's Bombards, Border Prince's Brigands, I think are again going to be a very niche one in this. And again, the glaring lack after that is anything monstrous or monsters themselves or mounts that are better than just horses. Like that's where the real um where the real issue with this list lies, and where you're really going to have a hard time in your matchups. However, everything that is in this book is perfectly usable, really customizable. You can really tailor it to taste, and and you can get some good use out of all of it. So I think this is a good set of units that are obviously going to see plenty of play because they are the extent of the faction. Okay, so let's lock this up. So Ryan, anything you want to shout out on the way out?
No, I'm good. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Perfect. Andrew.
Uh, yeah, I guess if you're in the Toronto area, check out SBot. Um, You can easily find that by Googling. I don't actually remember all the details. Also, if you're in the Ottawa area, I think we're planning to do a single day store event on November 2nd.
Yep.
Yes.
So,
Are the tickets up
check
for
that
that yet?
out.
Or Ryan, are the
I
tickets up for that yet?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I'll double check with Dan, make sure they get posted as soon as possible. But just check out, the Facebook group and the Discord, and we'll be posting all the info for that soon. But it's just going to be like a standard 2,000 point 3-game 1-day event. And then after that, we'll do, I guess, a more wacky one later on. So yeah, that's all I really got to shout out right now.
Okay.
Kevin?
Perfect. Yeah, not much to shout out on my end either. Looking forward to the event on the 2nd of November. I'll be there for sure. Yeah, that's about it. So thank you for listening, and we will be back fairly soon to talk about Slayers and not bound spells, but incantations for the Tomb Kings. So that's it. Have a good one.
Bye.